Councilmember Shealy. Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Wagner. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shea. Councilmember Griffin. Councilmember Moody. Councilwoman Jackson. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here.
And I see that the other council members are now at their seats.
Everyone is present and accounted for. And if y'all would like to join us for an invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Shealy is going to lead us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, as we look back on 2018, we thank you for the many blessings on the city of Charleston, the blessings of this group, and all the individuals in this room. We thank you for the freedoms to celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and the New Year, for the opportunity to spend time with our family and friends. Lord, we pray for peace during this holiday season, safety for those who will be traveling, and for your protection over the city of Charleston, our state, and our country. While most of us will be enjoying this season, our police officers, our firefighters, our military, first responders, and others will be working to protect us and to stand ready to help us. We pray that you will touch them, bless them, and protect each one of them. Lord, we're so grateful for the work of the Trident United Way and the American Red Cross. Thank you for the volunteers, the donors, the staff, the leaders, everyone involved with these organizations. Our community is stronger, healthier, and better because of your blessings through these groups. Please continue to watch over their work and guide them and strengthen them. Lord, we ask that you lead us tonight. Give us the sense of the needs of the people of Charleston. We ask that you give us wisdom and patience and see that your will is done. For it's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I always think of Council Member Moody when we leave out that comma, one nation under God. And so I would also like to recognize, I heard it was done, but the committee members weren't up here at the time, to recognize a happy birthday to Councilmember Moody. I wish you a happy birthday. Now, for recognitions, I would like to ask our own city leader, Russell Binder, who led the city's giving campaign this year to both United Way and Red Cross, to come forward, along with Amanda Baldwin with the Red Cross, and another employee with a special presentation, Kyle White. Russell? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. This year I had the pleasure of chairing not only the Trident United Way campaign, which I have done in the years past, we also this year combined it with the American Red Cross. The goal this year, as you know, was $70,000. For United Way, we took in $44,916.15. And the American Red Cross took in $28,086.96. This all comes from your generous donations as City of Charleston employees, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, as do the citizens that in our Tri-County area that will benefit from that. The total was $73,003.11, which was $3,003.11 over our goal. So thank you. This year we had a contest with the candy corn, and it had prizes. The count was 294 pieces of candy. But the really big thing was the American Red Cross gave us tickets from Southwest Airlines for 2 round-trip tickets in the continental United States. And the person who gets the closest without going over is Charleston firefighter Kyle Weiss. And he said he's flying to Myrtle Beach, I think.
Way to go, man.
Thank you. Thank you, and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Tell everyone where you're going for vacation.
I'm going to take my family to Yellowstone National Park. To see the guys.
Great. All right, next we have a number of public hearings this evening. First is a boundary line adjustment between the city of Charleston and town of James Island. This has come before council already. This will be our second reading, but we have a public hearing regarding the matter this evening. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Please come forward. Okay, hearing none, it comes back to council. We have a motion for second reading. Any discussion? All in favor, please. Oh, Councilmember Jackson.
I just want to say, because it has been a long time in getting to the final approval, that the purpose of this was to accommodate the creation of a new fire station on James Island by the Public Service District. So if anyone's been by their ratty old Camp Road station, it's going to be a happy day for James Island to have a brand new one. So thank you to us.
Terrific. And we just voted, or did we? Yeah, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. We have a motion for second reading.
Coming from you and Councilmember.
Yeah.
Louis. But we hadn't, about to go to.
This for second reading.
It says second reading.
All in favor of second reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification.
Oh, Mayor, are we going to third reading? This specifically says second.
It is, but
We're going to do third as well.
I think we were just waiting for the public hearing. Is that correct? Yeah, so we do need third reading and ratification. Yes, ma'am.
So we need another motion.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. So next is number 2, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is 52 Line Street on the peninsula. It's between King Street and Meeting Street. The map is in front of you and in your packets. It's former Norfolk Southern land. It has a cell tower in the rear. We have some images of the property. It's used for parking right now. It's immediately adjacent to the old rail line and would be adjacent to the future low line. The property is gravel and surrounded by other commercial uses. It's in our comprehensive plan as in our urban core, which is the area recommended for the densest type of uses. The request is to go from general business to MU2 workforce housing.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
My apologies to council. I want to correct something. I didn't make public comment over the years regarding affordable housing and transportation, but something has come up.
Please state your name and address.
Okay, I'll put it up now. You sure you want my name? Okay, Anthony G. Bryant, 2123 Cortland Avenue, North Carolina 29403, U.S. Magistrate Judge, no, U.S. Senior Judge, Margaret Seymour, which I have a transportation lawsuit on the table in Richmond, Virginia, regarding these issues that I spoke on. But the question before the body with me, with my name, is whether or not under transportation, my name is my name. In terms of a ticket I received in my area in 1989, which I did not live in the city of Charleston. I did not live in South Africa. I was in Maryland that period of time. But you were on the ticket. The city of Charleston was, and was delivered to me in 2013. So all my public comment I made federally online, what I made in the Federal Registry online regarding the issues of gentrification and other issues I've made publicly known has been put in question by the state of South Carolina, DHEC, the county of Charleston, and you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes to council. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
Okay, E3 is at F Street. It is also property that was formerly Norfolk Southern that is now City of Charleston property. It's at the end of F Street, as you see here, backing up to the ramps of I-26 as I-26 merges into 17 coming into the downtown. Properties in front of it, fronting on King Street, are owned by the Charleston Housing Authority and have affordable housing on them. This is a future affordable housing site as well. The zoning requested for it, since it was previously railroad right-of-way, is MU1 workforce housing, and both staff and planning commission recommend approval.
Great. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Cited in the lawsuit was DHEC. DHEC made an approval to McWhirter for South Carolina Railways and got serious mitigation for the Army Corps Engineers. That was cited. The real question with all of what you're doing, whether or not this is a federal arrangement made by the city of Charleston, state of South Carolina, and the feds to gentrify our community. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard? Hearing none, it comes before council. Motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
E4 is 89 Romney Street. It's a request to rezone from DR1F to RO, our residential office classification. You all are probably very familiar with this area of Romney Street. Here's Meeting Street on the north-south run. This corner is going to have a new multifamily building with mixed use in it. The off-ramp from I-26 comes, or off-ramp from I-26 comes in right here, and King Street is further to the east. There is a good bit of transition and new business in this area and more traffic in the area as well. We have some images of the property. You see some aerial images there showing the property, and there's a street front view. It's a very small piece of property. It's Freedman's Cottage that has been on the market, and staff is very comfortable with this request because of the nature of this area of Romney Street and the fact that there are a number of other mixed uses in the area, and the residential office use or district requires that the residential character of the building be maintained as well. And so staff and Planning Commission recommended approval of this request.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes to council.
One question. Have they reached out to the neighborhood association president in that area, mistaken?
Yes, sir. I believe she came to the site and saw the property. Yes, sir.
Move on.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
Okay. The next one is on Clements Ferry Road. This is 2026 Clements Ferry Road, the Enterprise Boulevard area. It's just north of I-526. It's an area that has industrial to the north. It has a marina and other commercial buildings to the south, residential development to the east. There's a new multifamily development on the rear portion of the property, and the front portion was brought into the city as light industrial, but as time has evolved, the owners have realized that the better use on the site would be for mixed use development and would like to take it to the general business classification. It's approximately 30 acres in size. Here's an aerial image of it. It already has a road that traverses it through here. There will be a new road created on the property that will line up with Beresford Run, which will create a great location for a new traffic signal and our new city fire station in that location. And again, the multifamily is already at the rear of the property here and industrial to the north. Both the Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of the request.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I don't have anything to add to what Mr. Morgan said, but I'm Foster Gilliard, happy to answer any questions. I'm representing the applicant.
Foster Gilliard, and a former member of this council. Yes, that's right. And I would point out that this is the tract of land that the city of Charleston has contract on to build our replacement fire station for fire station number 20.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, and E6 was deferred.
Christopher, I realize that number 6 is deferred, but in the event some people came that might want to speak on number 6.
All right. Okay, so you were moving on to number 7?
Yes, sir, but I can,
okay.
yeah, we can announce 217 Ashley is number 6.
So there was a rezoning of 217 Ashley Avenue that was advertised Council will not be taking action on this matter tonight. It has been deferred by the applicant, but the public hearing was advertised, so if anyone would like to come forward and speak to the matter of the rezoning of 217 Ashley Avenue, now's your chance. Would anyone like to be heard? Would anyone on council like to be heard?
Just very briefly before we go on, this keeps showing up on our agenda.
Yes, sir.
And it just so happens the person in the office next to mine lives next door to this property, and so she sees it on the agenda. Can you give us some idea of what the applicant is doing, thinking? Is this ever going forward?
Well, staff recommended against the rezoning. Right. Planning Commission recommended against the rezoning. The applicant has deferred several times, and beyond that, I can't tell you. We don't have a limitation on that other than the amount of time within which the applicant has put the application in and when the final action is taken.
And what is that time limit?
It's basically a year time period, and it's getting close to that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this one might just time out on us, you think?
I think the applicant wants to have it back in January, but we thought that for December, and then we were told about a week ago that
I think we've all heard from this
here.
applicant. I just would like to get this off the agenda. Thank you.
All right, sir.
All right, now number 7.
Okay. And number 7 has also been deferred by request of the applicant, but again, we'll show the map and just let everybody see where this is in case anybody's here for the discussion. But this is newly annexed property on the southern end of Clements Ferry, south of 526, south of St. Thomas Island Drive, adjacent to other properties in the city. The recommended zoning from staff and Planning Commission was RR1, but the applicant has recommended a deferral at this point in time. Or requested a deferral, excuse me.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? All quiet. Any comments from council? We're not acting on this tonight. It's been deferred by the applicant. I don't think we need to take a motion because it's already deferred by the applicant. All right. Number 8.
And this is property on Johns Island. It is an amendment to the PUD, the Fenwick PUD that is in this location near Maybank Highway and Main Road. And the main purpose of this amendment is to create changes to the PUD that allow for the dedication of the right-of-way for the northern Pitchfork corridor, which would come from the property owner here, and to make sure that the owner does not lose any of the things that could have been in the PUD just by virtue of dedicating the right-of-way for that. And otherwise, the PUD still has the same number of units that were approved by council 3 years ago. They're just minor changes in the PUD. We were very comfortable with this and very happy that we could move forward with the northern Pitchfork by virtue of this dedication. And this also goes in step with the development agreement that you all have later on your agenda as well. Both staff and Planning Commission recommended approval of these amendments to the PUD.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now for third reading and ratification, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. This has been coming to us for a long time, and we thank you again for the dedication of this right-of-way. It's really an important step to improving traffic on Johns Island. Thank you very much. Okay, next, we got one more?
Yeah. Yes, sir. The legal staff was handling this. This is the issue with the Planning Commission supermajority and City Council vote.
All right. Do we have a presentation? Which lawyer? Here he comes forward.
This is the proposed amendment to Section 54943C, which would take out the 3/4 override requirement that's currently in that section and replace it with an 8-member council, 8 members of council requirement. So if 8 members of council show up, you need 100% of members to vote to override a planning commission decision or a resident protest decision. If 9 come, you need 8, etc. 13 come, you need 8. That, just to put it in perspective, 8 of the total amount of council members would be would meet a 60% threshold, but not a 65% threshold. So So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councilmember Waring.
Well, first, is this a public hearing, or is it we just...
It's on our public hearing section, so does anyone from the public like to speak to this matter? Please come forward. Yes, sir.
Since I was a former Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals member, now based upon the Attorney General and U.S. Attorney and whoever, I don't know, since I've got this legal designation for the rest of my life, I want to comment on this in terms of each board member, each one of you should have a membership on these boards. County Council, one good thing about them, despite my experience, was they gave each council member a person to serve on their committees. And that helps for the overall area, because if we're talking about growing the city and you have the people growing the city, they don't have their perspectives in terms of James Allen and Johns Allen and West Ashley. The mayor can't exclusively appoint people right now to these boards. Now, in terms of how you go past approving, overriding a decision by people who are experts, in most cases, they're experts in the community, they know what they're talking about and doing, you then have to really reconsider possibly just changing all the board requirements in order to go along with the growth of this city, which is probably growing leaps and bounds in the next 30 to 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Leah Farrell with the Preservation Society of Charleston, and I'll keep it short. I've been here before on this issue. We just want to remind Council that Planning Commission did unanimously, resoundingly disapprove this recommendation. You all met, you had a really robust conversation during the joint working session. We thought it was a really productive conversation. No decisions were made, so we just request that there be a reset on this to allow for further conversation, and we certainly welcome the opportunity to be a part of that dialogue with Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard? So the matter comes to Council. We have a motion to approve and a second. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the fourth time a change to this ordinance, fifth time it's been in front of us. I thought this was a new ordinance that we set forward, okay? We are trying to establish a change in policy. And in discussing, having a sit down with the Preservation Society, Historic Charleston, a couple of members of the Planning Commission, we had a good conversation, which led to additional conversations with members of the Planning Commission. Believe it or not, this 8-vote override was a suggestion from a member of the Planning Commission. It wasn't mine. As a matter of fact, there's no need to reveal the name, but let me tell you how this process has gotten so personal. One of the objections was, if we had a simple majority, 7 members of council, we could do business. As a matter of fact, we could pass this city budget tonight with 7 votes, 4-3. And one of their disagreements was you could override, technically, the Planning Commission with 4 votes. I said, you're right about that. That person suggested have a threshold of 8. We sent that back to the Planning Commission, discussed it with our colleagues here, and when we went to the Planning Commission, the commission member that suggested that voted against it. When we look at, and I have 25 years experience being either on the Planning Commission or the City Council's agenda. In 25 years, there have been one small minority business owner that's gotten an override of the Planning Commission. 1 in 25 years. And when we look at, part of the pushback has been, well, big developers will run rampant with this. Well, let's look at what the results. When large developers on projects that have failed at the Planning Commission, in particular, it's usually on a divided vote, what happens? The architects, the engineers, the lawyers fan out, and they lobby you, Mr. Mayor, and us, to give us the rest of the story. So the Lowe's corporations of the world isn't being stopped by this. The Gray Stars of the world isn't being stopped by this. So the JP Morgan Real Estate Investment Trust isn't really being affected by this. All of these are transactions that are ongoing and taking place right now in the city of Charleston. Who's being affected by this most acutely is the small business person. And you say, why am I so ardent behind this change? Because when you apply for a zoning change in the city of Charleston, in particular for an individual or a small business person, it is an intimidating process. When you get turned down, they don't even come forward. I did not even realize this until I left the Planning Commission and came to council. So when you look at creating affordable housing in the city of Charleston, we don't even recognize those small business people that have those duplexes, triplexes, maybe the little 8 and 10 unit apartment complex. We don't incentivize that. We don't throw fertilization to grow that supply of affordable housing. I'm talking about people who create units to be rented to people on Section 8 housing. We have a huge private sector out there that those voices aren't being accommodated. Now, we accommodate unaffordable housing. And when you say, well, how do you define unaffordable housing? Unaffordable housing are the apartments that right now the average city employee cannot afford. And we know that. Our first responders cannot afford. The LPN at the hospitals cannot afford. What do we do to incentivize unaffordable housing? We reduced the parking requirement, Councilman White. I remember you and I voted against that 3 or 4 years ago. Why? It used to be, for those in the audience, let me explain. If you're building a 100-unit apartment complex, it used to be you had to create 1.5 off-street parking spaces for every 100 units, which meant you had to create 150 off-street parking spaces. We, not under this administration, the previous administration, voted to reduce that to 1. Well, that seems simple enough. Well, you don't have to reserve space for 50 off-street parking spaces. What did that do? That drove up exponentially the cost of the land, the value of the land. And then as a council, we came around and we increased the height district. So we created an environment. We never saw boom cranes like this 10 years ago. You know why? We didn't have that parking requirement change, and we didn't have the height change. Funny how that works. In community development, I was listening to Councilman Lewis, and he really said this under his breath. When he saw the Upper Peninsula guidelines, he said under his breath, my goodness, this is the last frontier, meaning that's the last big tract of land on the peninsula that we can create affordable housing. We're trying to amend it now, but when it first came out, it had no affordable housing component to it. And it was approved, and some people grandfathered underneath that now. This is most effective with discouraging changes that's proposed by small, women-owned, and minority businesses. Now, that may not be the intention, but that is a fact. And our history and our recordings will show that. And one of the things I will ask of our council, not tonight, I don't understand how an elected body can propose an ordinance on a change of governance, and a non-elected body can throw up a roadblock to that. I actually believe it dilutes one person, one vote. So we've been playing this tennis match back and forth, but obviously I think it's wrong. It hurts small business. And as we go forward, in particular into election year, you know, when we voted for the apology for slavery, these rooms were packed. This was one of the things I brought up. And one of the reasons I didn't vote for the apology for slavery, because they are entrapments, if you will, from Jim Crow. This was done in 1931. Many of the people around this table, it didn't have us in mind. Charleston used to be known for the small businesses, the small shops, the unique things that were not elsewhere. Recently had a very good friend, who was staying at Charleston Place came outside on the sidewalk and said, wow, but for the buildings, the shops, you can find almost any place else now. I mean, we're changing as a fabric in the city. You know, why are these small businesses moving off? They can't afford the rents. What are we doing as a system of governance to effect change in that? We keep the same policies in place.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Griffin.
Councilmember Waring, I think you probably know this better than anybody here, but I haven't been here that long. How you said there's been 5 different times this thing's come back. And how many different ways have we tried to word this to work with the Planning Commission to come up with some sort of compromise?
We went back with first we went back with a 60%.
Right.
They said no. Then we said 65%. Right. They said no. Then we said simple majority. They said no. So we've been back and forth on
exactly. And my point there is that we keep trying to make a compromise with them, and they go against us every single time. And this time, they made this suggestion and then unanimously disapproved it. Something's got to give here, and it just doesn't seem fair. Like you said, we're elected to serve our people, and then we approve the Planning Commission. There's no reason why they should have more authority than we do. And we keep trying to work with them, and they're not going to. So we have to come up with something.
Okay. Are you finished? I'm sorry. Councilmember Lewis.
You know, I've sat here and listened many times. We've been accused of trying to override the Planning Commission to take their powers away. I've been sitting here for 23 years. And I don't think 5 times I can remember this city council override the Planning Commission on anything. They are here at the pleasure of City Council. We appointed them. They does a good job. And I don't think there's no way that we're trying to take their authority from them. But we have a responsibility as the board of directors of this city to make sure that if something comes before the city, before this council, that we need to change, we need to override. We need to override it. I mean, you look at last week, we got a budget was presented. The mayor has the authority to present his budget, but the council felt that there was a different budget they could present, and they presented it, and we didn't vote on the mayor's budget. We voted on the ad hoc committee budget, but it only took 7 people. He is the mayor of the city. So why should the Planning Commission have more authority than the mayor has, when it only takes 7 people to override the mayor, and it would have taken 10 people to override the plan? Something's wrong. It just don't seem right. So I think that we need to change this and go with this recommendation and just get this behind us. Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I especially thank Councilmember Waring, because I've discussed this with you more than once, and I am going to vote to go along with this new iteration of the definition of the supermajority. But I do think that we have begun an opportunity to get back to sort of the basics of why we have Planning Commission and then elected body government. I think we've gone astray in recent years in making most of the decisions that the actual Planning Commission end up voting on pretty pro forma. They have not been encouraged to take on the full breadth and depth of their own authority to be making recommendations to us for improvements to our zoning code and our ordinances for land use in particular. I think that's the result of maybe many different reasons, but I think we made a really good start. I didn't realize when I was sort of, insisting that we table a lot of the rezonings that we have on our deferred agenda. I didn't realize when I was asking for a joint work session along with a couple of the other planning commissioners that had never happened in the history of the city. I mean, that makes no sense. We're supposed to be working as a well-oiled machine. They understand the code. They understand the rulings that are coming before them. They can determine that things are not working correctly based on the fact that they're not being empowered to use any decision-making opportunities that they have. They can come to us for changes in the code and the regulations, and we can say yes or no. And that's how you evolve into a much better process that is responsive to the era of growth and, development that we've been experiencing the last decade. So I'm going to vote for this, but I don't want us to use this vote as a way to sort of put the Planning Commission back in their box. This is not a contest. This should be a collaboration and a cooperation between two bodies that are very important to the current and future of the city. So I think we need to have another work session. I've been talking to the mayor and encouraging him on those lines. We identified several items that were on our hoped-for agenda that, are going to need to be well thought and worked through. So I would like us to continue that iterative process and get the most out of each of our authorities. So thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members. I know as it was stated, that we were going back and forth with this for a long time. And it's very seldom here, even council, as was stated, that we override the Planning Commission. They're volunteers, which we elect, and we love them. We love volunteers. But I have not seen in anywhere I've been that volunteers have the more power than, more authority than elected officials. We are out there, each one of us here have approximately 10, 12,000 people in their district to represent. We are out in this community all the time hearing all these different problems that they're running into, flooding, this and that. We are hearing all of this. The Planning Commission is there, sure, to make decisions, but they're not hearing all that information. They're not in that street every day. They're not out in that community like we are, but they're making a decision on what they're getting in front of them as paper. But we go out and do a lot of groundwork to find out if it's true, if the fact is going on, along with the staff that the staff is giving us. The Planning Commission is going to receive some information, and they're going to make the decision from what they're seeing on this paper, on these papers they have in front of them. But we are out there on the ground floor, out in these communities, hearing and seeing the problems that are out there and making decisions. And that was my dilemma and my problem with it when this was sending back and forth. I said, how are these volunteers going to tell me, as elected officials, in the oath that we took, that they're not going to do this, we can't do this, send it back and forth to us. I have never understood that since I was here. Never did. We need them, as I stated, volunteers, because they're volunteering. And in a sense, we are volunteering too, to me, for all the work that we are putting in to this council. A lot of people don't understand it. We're just not coming to meetings here every second and fourth Tuesday. We are in that community. We have neighborhood meetings. We have all the different other meetings we're going to. We do to a lot of different meetings on being on council. It's just like a full-time job. I tell some people sometimes I have this job on council be harder than I work my regular job. And that was 33 years working as a HUD certified housing counselor. I said, but people, we got to understand that just because you're sitting on the board, you don't have all this bunch of authority. Even on council, we don't have it, because we have to abide by certain rules and regulations. And this is what I'm saying. All we are saying is that we need to have more leverage to change things if it comes to that point. We're not going to say we're going to change everything that the Planning Commission is saying to us or override it. But just because something might have been in place for 30 years or 100 years, that doesn't mean it's right. The city has changed. I didn't want the city to change the way it is. This is my home. I've been here 70 years. But it changed. So I have to go along with the change that have been made since I was here. So that don't mean, like I said, just because we have something in place and have been there for all these years, that's right. It's not right. It's changed, so we have to change with the times. So this is all I'm saying. We are making changes for the better, and I believe it's for the better. Because we're not going to be on this council. Some younger people are going to be here soon, and they're not going to take up all these things that we're taking up with.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Moody has not spoken.
To me, I'm going to support this, and I've been in support of it all along. To me, it's a little bit even more insidious than what y'all are talking about, because the Planning Commission, by a vote of 3-2, can deny something You know, they can have just 5 of their 9 present, and they can deny something, and then we have to have this super majority. I just think these rules are wrong. And matter of fact, I mean, I don't know where this might go, but I'd be interested in having a lawsuit or something to take the Attorney General and sue ourselves. I don't know how we get a resolution on this. Just find ourselves guilty. But I think we might need to go outside and look for legal counsel and just say, hey, we need some kind of a ruling on this and proceed. So anyway.
Councilmember Griffin.
Sorry, there's one more thing that I meant to mention that I didn't before. And I do want to say that I absolutely agree with what you said, that we cannot lock the Planning Commission up in a box. I mean, they're one of our most important entities as a city. But at the same time, Councilman Mitchell, you're absolutely right. We're the last line of defense. It comes to us very last, and if we approve it or we don't, we're the ones who have to answer the questions. We're the ones who are on the ballot every 4 years. And to think that we have to get 10 votes to override somebody who came before us, I think that's ludicrous. We're going to be the ones that have to answer the question. And if we feel as a council, as an elected official, that the decision was not made correctly by the Planning Commission, it should take a simple majority to overrule that. Thanks.
Councilmember Moody again.
Let me ask one more question. Maybe one of our lawyers can answer it. This ordinance was put in place by a resolution or an ordinance of City Council, was it not?
I'm going to defer to Chip because he's looked at the history of this.
Okay. I mean, we passed this ordinance, we approved this ordinance, and I'm not so sure exactly what the history has been, and maybe Chip can fill us in. But I know at some point there were 16 members of council and they went from alderman to city council, and I'm not sure exactly how all this occurred, but it's in an ordinance, right?
Yes, sir, it's in a zoning ordinance.
It's in the zoning.
Who can pass an ordinance?
I'm sorry?
Who can pass an ordinance? The city council is the only one that can pass an ordinance.
Right.
So if we can pass it, why can't we unpass it? Well, but then be held hostage by anybody.
Because it's the zoning ordinance,
Right.
isn't that correct?
Well, yes, sir.
We didn't.
There's case law that basically says you can delegate it as long as you retain the final approval authority. And there's one state, I don't remember which it is, that actually requires unanimous decision to overturn a planning commission by state law. But as long as you maintain the right to finally approve or disapprove the ordinance, you can sort of delegate that authority to require a supermajority requirement if you would like to. And the ordinance was originally adopted, I believe there was a zoning/planning commission established initially, and then in 1931 our first zoning ordinance was adopted based on it was a study done by a firm out of Pittsburgh. The current ordinance is the same as it was in 1931. It was adopted by City Council on recommendation of that Planning Zoning Commission in 1931. Pennsylvania actually has a state law, the exact same provision we have in our ordinance now. They still have it. But in 1999, to kind of go up a little bit, after the Comprehensive Planning and Zoning Enabling Act was passed by the state, City Council actually, after review and approval by the Planning Commission again, reenacted and changed all of its whole zoning ordinance and kept this provision in. So it was actually reenacted in 1999 as well. That's the history.
Back to Councilmember Waring.
When we had the joint workshop, one of the questions I put, and I think we do need to note that it was a unanimous vote, but 2 members were absent at the Planning Commission when they voted on this. Commissioner Robbie Sanyel and Dr. Elise Davis McFarland was absent. So, but that said, one of the questions at the work session I brought up, I pointed out, as I did to you all, that this is particularly punitive on small business people. Now, if you hurtful to small business people. You can't hurt small business without hurting women and minority-owned business. The two goes hand in hand, and you say, why do you say that? Because we don't have Fortune 500 women and minority-owned businesses in Charleston. Now, I don't know about Pennsylvania. Maybe they have that. But when I asked the question of the Planning Commission, you are not really being effectual on the large businesses or the Fortune 500 businesses. You're being very effective on small business owners. What is the reason that we want to be that effective on small business people that's coming forward and asking for change? Every Planning Commission member was there. Nobody said anything. Nobody answered that. What is the reason? So I pose that same question to you, Mr. Mayor, and out of respect, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Because, thank you. Because this is definitely anti-small business. So I would like to hear, because I don't see all these small business proposals that we need to vote them down, we need to vote them down, get them out of here. We need to encourage small business proposals. Why? Because small business employs more people in America than any other single form of business in the United States. And that is a fact. So I rest my case, if you will, and I'd like to hear from my colleagues, why do we want small business people who cannot afford to hire the attorneys, the engineers, and the consultants, why do we want them to have that higher hurdle? Thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to be heard? I would like to just share, I plan to vote against the motion. We had a wonderful joint session with the Planning Commission just last week, and I certainly, it pulls at my common sense heartstring when you mention, Councilmember Moody, that a vote 3-2, and then it requires our super majority to override them. In this case, the vote, even though 2 were absent, admittedly, was unanimous by the Planning Commission, and was clear from our discussion at our joint meeting the other day. It's clear to me, even though they didn't take another vote, I don't think we turned anybody's opinion with the conversation that occurred here. So I honestly think we could do a better job. I know this has been to us a number of times, and y'all want to be done with it. But, you know, perhaps there's some compromise where if they have a split decision with a simple majority vote, that council could suffice with a simple majority. But in this case, they had a unanimous vote of all present. And let me share that as we had earlier this evening with these public hearings, and almost always they involve some rezoning matter that has always gone to the Planning Commission. What gets reported by our staff is, and we all, at least my ears, perk up. Well, how did the Planning Commission vote on this? We respect their opinion. Yes, they're volunteers, and God bless them for the countless hours that they volunteer in service to our city. But they are there to make informed decisions, and by their service on their board, that commission, as you serve, Councilmember Waring, for 15 years, you learn a lot, you gain expertise, and many of them are chosen specifically because of the expertise that they have. So we honor their judgment and their recommendations to this council. I think of that often when we have these public hearings on these matters. So this you know, zoning ordinance that was put in place in 1931, I'm not married to never changing it, but I think it's really a system that is not broken. Since I've been mayor, I only recall a few cases where we even disagreed with the Planning Commission, and when that occurred, we got it and we overrode them. One case was with the Sergeant Jasper. Another was a case where council wanted to entitle a property up on King Street to give them a little more height, and the Planning Commission was against it. We came together, group, and overrode the Planning Commission. So we have that authority, and I believe they give this city a certain amount of checks and balances, which is a good thing in government. And so until I'm convinced we could do a better job at compromise, I plan to vote against it. So I think everybody's had their say. Could we call the question? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. We'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Nay.
Councilmember Shealy?
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis? Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Councilmember Wagner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Waring?
Aye.
Councilmember Seekings?
Nay.
Councilmember Shade?
Nay.
Councilmember Griffin?
Aye.
Councilmember Moody?
Aye.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Aye.
Mayor Tecklenburg?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4. Okay, so it's 9-4.
The motion does not carry.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Waring.
I would like to put a motion on the floor that council seeks outside legal opinion on this. Because I just really believe it puts our staff in a precarious position. They work at your pleasure, and they're trying to give advice to opposing parties. And to me, inherently, that's a conflict of interest. I still don't understand why we have to get a approval, why the elected body has to get approval from a non-elected body. So I think we need to, I'd like to put the motion on the floor that we seek outside legal opinion.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll do that.
Mayor, before we move forward.
Yes, Councilmember Gregory.
I think it's Machiavellian, the prince that talks about power, and that power is never given, it's always taken. But it sounds like we're giving it, and they're taking it.
All right, thank you. Okay, next is the approval of our city council minutes from November 27th. We got a motion to approve. We got a second. Any deletions, additions, corrections? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our citizens' participation period. We have a few folks. I would ask y'all to limit yourself to 2 minutes, please. And Madam Clerk will call your name, and just please come forward, state your name and address.
First person will be Muhammad Idris, followed by Judge Arthur McFarland, Harriet Rivas, Becky McSwain, Frank Conrad Russin, Gail Lansing, and Tony Bryant.
Evening, Muhammad Idris. At the last city council meeting, Councilman Gregory said that a great deal needs to be given to the city in the sense that we are voting for the staff, but we're not voting for the tools of the staff. We got the staff, but they don't have nothing to work with. And what happened 2 days later, a fire took place on Addison Street. And an 82-year-old man died in the fire. And the fire hydrant at the place where it's supposed to be at did not work. And the firemen had to go down the street to hook up the hoses. So that may have caused the man to die in the fire. So we need to check that out. And thank you, Councilman Gregory, because we do need the tools. We got the staff, but we don't have the tools to work with. And I'm asking you all not to drink no whiskey on Jesus' birthday.
Good evening. I'm Arthur McFarland, 204 Grove Street. I am co-president of the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, along with Reverend Jeremy Rutledge, who was here earlier this evening, but I think he left in light of the length of the meeting so far. I'm here really on behalf of the 29 congregations of CAJM to thank City Council tonight. So there's no tension here. Fact is that, that over 2.5 years ago, CAJM came to City Council and asked that there be an audit for racial bias of the Charleston Police Department. Last year, City Council voted unanimously to conduct such an audit, and tonight you have before you the last step in the effort, which is to approve the hiring of the firm CNA to conduct this audit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really a giant step towards improving police community relations in the city of Charleston. And so we want to thank all of you for the investment tonight, which we expect will certainly reap tremendous returns for our citizens and those visiting our city. In particular, I want to thank the committee chaired by Councilmember Shade, because we sat through those meetings and witnessed the diligence that they showed in selecting the firm. We also want to give thanks to Chief Reynolds, who in our private meetings and publicly showed his support for the audit and the necessity of doing it. In fact, he appeared at Morris Brown AME Church at our Community Problems Assembly last month and received an overwhelming ovation because he expressed his support for this audit. Finally, speaking of our CPA, our Community Problems Assembly, CAJM has selected transportation as our 2019 issue. Our research committee is narrowing our focus on the particular problem or issue, the best practice that we will be bringing before you and other public officials to address in 2019. So as a reminder, we are inviting all of you to come to our Nehemiah Action, which is where we get the final decision on our issue, on May the 6th at 7:00 p.m. I believe it'll be at Mount Moriah Baptist Church again. But thank you all so much for what you have done, and some members are still here, but for those who've left, you have really acted, I believe, in the best interests of all of us in the city of Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Harriet Revis.
Hi, my name is Harriet Revis, and I live at 509 West Wimbledon Drive, and I represent the Marlboro neighborhood as the president, and that's a neighborhood which you may know is the home of the Maybank Tennis Center over on James Island. Our concern is drainage and flooding. First, I would like to thank you again for funding the Folly Road Central Park drainage study in the 2018 budget. The study has not begun, but thankfully that funding is going to be carried over into the 2019 budget. For neighborhoods like Marlboro and others in the area to benefit in real time from the expenditure of these precious tax dollars for this drainage study, we need the results of the study, implementation of ideas, and best practices for stormwater management before developments like the Central Park Cluster are given final approval in TRC. We are not anti-development, but we would like to ask you to figure out a way to press pause on new developments in our area until this study is completed and implemented. We are simply asking you for responsible development. I would sincerely like to thank you for your service. As a neighborhood president, my job is to focus on my neighborhood, and I can only imagine the hours you spend working on the problems. So thank you.
My name is Becky McSwain. I live we actually own 48 and 492 East Wimbledon Drive. I'm following up. I'm here with Harriet, and I'm just kind of following up on behalf of all of the residents from our neighborhood, as well as neighborhoods around us on James Island. We agreed to let them all go Christmas shopping, and we'd come and represent them. But I know after sitting here tonight, this is my first time ever to really listen to everything that y'all have to do. God bless you all. I know we are small, but I think that cause represents many, many areas that of older neighborhoods, older established neighborhoods that are being impacted by some of the newer developments, the bigger cluster developments that have been approved. The one that is concerning us right now that will affect not just our neighborhood, but we're surrounded by Cross Creek, many neighborhoods around us that are going to be impacted from this cluster development. We have a chance, if you could please help us just put pause on starting and finishing that development until the drainage study is done. We're next. We're running behind Kenzie and everybody in the planning office who we've driven nuts has told us that we're next. We're just waiting on the West Ashley, I think it's the doo-wop study, to be completed. And it just makes so much sense to not put the cart before the horse. Why create an issue if then the study comes back and says, oh, I'm sorry, y'all have to spend $1 bazillion going back and undoing what this development has done. Should we make the developer pay for that, pay as he goes, and really do that? I don't know. It's all up to you, but what we're asking is that you put pause on that so it doesn't have a negative impact on the older neighborhoods.
Time.
Okay, and also just thank you and please make sure that there's plenty of stormwater funding for James Island.
Okay, Frank Conrad Russin, Gail Lansing, Anthony Bryant.
November 28th, I received from the U.S. Attorney's Office from the 19th regarding my complaint. What I did, it's not my GoFundMe page. This is Tony trying to get rich. This is GoFundMe. No, it isn't. My BZA membership was discovered. Okay? My DOT certification I worked hard for, which had where I went to college, where I lived in D.C., everything was discovered. Everything was discovered. I believe that criminal discovery abuse and/or prosecutorial abuse is real in America. That's the problem. Rand Paul stated even with Donald Trump right now, that prosecutorial abuse is real. If you ain't got no money and you broke and you poor, don't get in no trouble, because you ain't got no money to get out of it. Okay, this is about, for me, it's about prosecutory abuse in America. And you can have all the audits you want, but just to pay the fees across the street is $500, $400. You look at the census tract data in this area, who can pay $400 for a case? Or an appearance. When they say you don't have an appearance, that means you're interlocutory. Interlocutory means a minstrel. So then if you conduct yourself, that's a recalcitrant, then you're disobedient to the court, then you could be arrested. The premise of this state is 1895 Constitution of Ben Tillman is the premise of this state. You will not change much. We get a Ben Tillman education. We get a Ben Tillman environmental policy. Everything's based on him. So all the good deeds we do may be good deeds, but without dealing with the premise of the 1895 Constitution, we're going to remain the same in terms of race in South Carolina. So I didn't do it for a GoFundMe page. I did it for me, my family. That's what I did it for me. I want to know what the court system is about in America. It is about prosecutorial abuse for black folk.
Thank you, sir. Did we miss anyone who would like to be heard? All right, so next up is our committee reports, and I believe the only one we have this evening is our Committee on Ways and Means. Second. Any discussion? Councilmember Jackson.
Mayor, I don't have any discussion, but I thought in light of what I would consider very important approval that we made at Ways and Means that we're about to corroborate with our vote now on contracting for the police audit, that maybe we could hear just a snippet of a report from Councilmember Shade as the chairman of the Public Safety and the committee that selected the consulting team that's going to do the audit. We understand that this was a very cooperative and passionate effort on behalf of many citizens for us to do this, and I do salute you, Mayor, as allowing yourself to be open to the opportunity, and then to our new Chief Reynolds for picking up that ball and eagerly carrying it. So I think we do have a lot to be proud of, that we're going to start on a venture that will serve our community well. So can you just tell us, Councilmember Shade, why you picked this group?
If it's the pleasure of council. And he keeps it brief.
Yes.
Yeah, I would keep it brief. I just want to echo Judge McFarland's comments about the makeup of the committee. We started to expand and included some officers and some minority members on this selection committee, and I agree with the classification that it was very deliberative. We were meticulous. We went through, we reviewed the candidates, companies who came forward on their interviews. The questions that we asked them I thought were very thorough and very deep. Their presentations were very good. Then we narrowed it down to 3 companies. And it was the long process to negotiate, I think, the contract to where we are right now. So I appreciate the comments from Judge McFarland, and I appreciate the work that our committee put into this thing. It was very long and very involved. So I'm looking, finally we're getting to, that was just the beginning part of it. So we're finally getting to the start of this process. And I think we're looking at 8 months of that contract extending, so.
Right. Councilmember Jackson?
No, I just wanted to know how long.
Satisfactory.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other discussions on the
In
Ways and
addition,
Means
Mayor,
report?
just to ensure that it's on the record for some people that we're also approving and giving first reading to those ordinances that are connected to the Ways and Means agenda.
Absolutely. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. So let's see, next is a bill up for third reading is deferred because I believe that item is still going to the Planning Commission, and we'll wait till they take action upon it. Next is our bills up for second reading, and first is an ordinance regarding the property on Clementsbury Road that we had this is the one that we passed earlier during the public hearings, I believe, isn't it? Oh, you're right. It is the one that's deferred, 16.4 acres. But it's not marked as deferred on here.
Well, not was it on
yeah.
the, I think Christopher mentioned
It's deferred by the applicant, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
All right.
Right, I got it.
So I think since it's not marked on the agenda.
It's not marked on the agenda.
Let's have a motion to defer. We got one on the floor. We got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
That's it in there. They know that.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. So number 1 is deferred.
Yes.
Number 2.
Well, do we want to take all of those, the 4 together, as we normally do?
Yeah, I think we do need to separate 4 and 5, if you don't mind. Okay.
Okay, so.
2 and 3.
All right, so we're going to do 2 and 3.
2 and 3, we discussed those earlier. This is the ordinance that goes with them.
2 and 3.
Okay.
Yes. Let me look at 3.
That's the
I believe it's.
No, the next.
Municipal accommodations tax that we did last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the first ones.
We did not amend that, and then the number 2 is just the correction that was made from the year before, for 2018.
2 and 3. 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got a motion to approve 2 and 3.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So now, if we could take number 4 and 5 together.
Third reading, Mayor. We have to do third reading.
Oh, sorry about that. Third reading for 2 and 3. Got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, we have
Move for approval of 4 and 5.
4 and 5. And we have a
4 and 5.
we have a second. So, of course, this originally, a budget was presented by myself, by the mayor, and it was amended to be the Budget Committee's recommendations, which only varied from the mayor's budget by a few items, other than the primary difference being the extra 1.5 mil, which brought up the full pay differential for our employees to January 1. So I would respectfully entertain a motion to include these items on this one page that is balanced, so it would continue to be.
Motion to add those items, the revenue and the expenses, or the transfers, I guess.
Great. We have a motion and a second to add this amendment to the amended budget for number 4 and 5. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, with 1 nay.
Okay, third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Have number 6 and
Third reading, Mayor. Third reading.
third reading on numbers 4 and 5.
Okay, I have
and
Mitchell,
ratification.
and who else was it? Lewis, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We got 1 nay. The ayes have it. Now, we got left 6 and 7. Are y'all good to take those together? Okay, we got a motion to take 6 and 7 together.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Second. I did a second. Right here.
We got a second from Councilmember Mitchell. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification of 6 and 7. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So next we have, I got to sign these here things. Got one ordinance for first reading, ordinance to make parking for churches a conditional use within the conservation and residential zoning district. We have a motion to approve. Did we get a second?
Second, thank you.
Councilmember Waring.
I just say fine, and thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Jennifer, you made those motions. Okay.
Good things come to those who wait.
Did you vote on it yet? Did you vote on that one?
Did you have more for me to sign over here? There.
I thought we did it.
Did we carry the motion?
We haven't voted yet. Was there any discussion? I thought you. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Y'all pardon me, I get distracted when I'm having to sign these here things. But I'm done.
While you're signing, Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
We can make sure we try to put best efforts to communicate that out to our religious community, that that's now an allowed use.
Be happy to do that. I'm proud to announce that, of course, it's not every church in town, but our clergy council that meets on a quarterly basis and gets regular communications from the city on various matters is now at 98 pastors, representing 98 churches in the city, and we hope it'll be 100 soon. So we can easily, with a punch of a button, communicate with those 98, and we'll ask them to share with their colleagues as well. That's a great deal. So next, I would like to ask for a motion for us to go into executive session to get a legal update on a recent matter, the annexation lawsuit that went to court. And I don't expect any action to be taken for members of the public and staff who are here. So effectively, this should be the end of our meeting. We will reconvene to formally end the meeting, but we don't anticipate any action. So I want to wish everybody a blessed holy days and holidays, and somebody's pointing.
Is retiring.
Deb Jenkins is retiring. Don't do that. Before we adjourn, could we recognize Deb for her many years, Ms. Jenkins, for her many years of service, particularly this year. Yeah. God bless you. How many years? 20. 20 years of service. And her work on the budget since I've been mayor has been remarkable. So would you like to address council? Yeah. Oh, we got a picture together. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you all. It's been a pleasure to serve the citizens. And thank you all for the opportunity to serve. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Job well done. We'll have something special for you then. Okay, we're going to adjourn to the mayor's office right across the hall. Oh, hey y'all, council, can I get the motion to go in executive session in a second? All in favor, please say aye. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes, but you don't need to wait around. As well as could be attractive.